Mr.
Damn it,
Goodman.
I wanted to ask him a question.
Most emotional man I've ever met.
When these fucking like web of fucking woke virtue signaling comes unraveled and they can't consistently keep all these claims straight anymore.
Yeah, I'm gonna get a month-long period listening to that shit.
You should bring up Nostra as well.
This has been an hour of purity testing amongst
literally.
Yeah.
It does nothing for what everyone who's on this app, who's in these spaces, is claiming that they're working towards. It's absolutely the downfall. It's who can we kick out of the tent today?
Yeah.
For some clicks and likes. It's literally obnoxious.
Yeah, you guys really have to stop letting this happen, because I keep watching these panels where these lefties come on, and I'm just going to blanket lefties at this point. I'm sorry. I'm like fully gone. This is like a full-on progressive problem. You keep letting them up and they just completely take over the panel, and it's mostly gibberish nonsense. They then flip it around on you guys and they start purity testing and trying to bring up all of this just absolute nonsense. I don't know if it's like you guys have spent too long on the app and you take it seriously, but stop taking this seriously. This is just, I understand it's scary when someone accuses you of being a racist, and it's scary when someone finds a screenshot from like 5 years ago where you said something that was like slightly inappropriate. Like, the way to combat that is to tell them to get fucked.
Yeah, I think this has now just become left-wing political Jerry Springer. I'm on the balance of like this is, it's almost, now I used to care and now I don't care. Now I think this is actually just kind of fun. But I do agree. I don't know. I want to kind of gear it in a way in which like the MAGA community who tunes in and watches this can connect with people like us and realize that we are not, that is a small subset of people who I know are being represented as the totality of the left, but I want them to be able to see that there's like just folk like us who aren't going to kick them out of the tent because they stepped in dog shit. You know what I mean? Like that. I don't know.
It's fun to block people. I'm so serious. Like, just block these hoes and move on. Like, focus on tackling MAGA, because these people are not worth it. They will lie. They will do anything to try to make you look bad, because they don't care about honesty. They don't care about politics. And I think Destiny said it perfectly fine the other day, where he said, look, these people have totally different goals other than the typical liberals, or what I consider to be the most like kind of reasonable left. Mm-hmm. The problem is left. Mm-hmm. The problem is these people are playing a different game. They're not interested in furthering democratic goals. They're not interested in like pushing for candidates. They're interested in a social club where you can purity test, and if you don't match it, fuck you. You're a crazy liberal. You're a neo fucking conservative. You're actually MAGA undercover. Like, be fucking for real.
The left
100.
Just block them. Block them and focus on MAGA.
The left is or to 70% or 60%, and the result of that is you would have Supreme Court justices that greater reflect the majority of your views. You would have political wins. You would have leaders that are more representative of you. Instead, you have a lost election. That's what happens.
It doesn't even have to be like, oh, since we don't agree on this issue too, then we just don't talk about it, period. Like, there can be like there can be like win-win situations. Like, okay, if you're willing to meet me here, I can meet you there. Like, all right, if I can just talk about like how I think honestly this entire situation could have like been avoided in terms of this tour real quick. So literally all it had to be was maybe just the next day of like Z reaching out or somebody reaching out to Z and just saying, hey, I know I came up on the panel. I know things got heated. I apologize. Nothing else. If it became, well, like you did microaggressions, it could have just been a conversation of like, okay, how so? Because honestly, I look at this And I get so fucking frustrated of how there's so much infighting between people who know how to organize and people who have platforms that can get people involved. Geek and Z working together would be fucking fantastic. And I've been listening to this live for the past maybe 2 hours.
I personally disagree with that. I think, I don't think so.
Yeah, I don't think someone needs to capitulate
so.
something that they don't agree that they did. And I don't think the live was racist. I think that there was, and also, I mean, she did have an apology towards the general creators, and then also there were creators telling her not to make a public statement. I mean, like, the situation was, the situation happened the way it happened, and I don't think we should put the blame on Z about that. I think the blame should be on the fact that the left has the inability to not purity test, to not want to protect their platforms for monetary value. They're so caught up in audience capture. It's insane. So, like, that's my problem, because we should not even be having a discussion over, like, that live. I listened to it and I'm like, that should not have imploded a tour. And that's why, like, with this new tour, it's not, the implosion isn't going to happen because those of us who are on the tour aren't sensitive little snowflakes about everything.
Well,
But then you also notice that, like, it doesn't, I don't know if you understand that, like, it doesn't take an apology to solve anything. It's never going to be enough. Apologizing isn't enough. You have to apologize the right way. And if you don't do that, then that's a problem. It's like, even when people apologize, I have seen it. I've seen it happen in the last few weeks on this around here. Even when people apologize, it's not enough. Like, that it doesn't stop people from then going and finding other things from years ago and pulling that up and pulling that up and pulling that up. And, like, it's just like, you guys have to learn to, like, you don't apologize for things that you didn't do wrong. I'm not saying there's no such thing as accountability, but I don't believe they're using accountability in the same way as most normies would or do. This is like a radical group, and it's, like, inappropriate. It's just...
Yeah, well, for example,
So-
they have spread online all over the internet that I didn't vote. What? Because, for example, this is great. I was in a live or hosting a live. Everyone in the panel denounced what Ray did. Every one of us did. But because they took it down to the micro movements of my face, even though you could see that I was, like, breathing extremely heavy, very uncomfortable by what was going on. There's, like, thousands of people in chat. Snow the Product just came up. Up here. There's a bunch of people up here. I am so uncomfortable, right? They take micro movements of your face and then plaster you all over the internet. And then they take it a step further and then lie and say I didn't vote. And then I had to go to the county tax assessor's office to pull my information that I actually voted. And then on top
Oh, but you had a sticker
hold on.
too. I saw the sticker.
Yeah, well, and they don't care about the sticker. It's
Really?
like they keep moving the goalposts. They said, when I tried telling him it was just the sticker, they said, oh, your sticker is fake, or you bought it somewhere. And then I pull this up and I say I did vote, and then they move the goalposts again. And they say, oh, well, actually, you're registered in like 10 different counties and you voted for 6 different candidates. Like, it doesn't matter what you do, even though I proved I voted, even though in originally the statement was I didn't vote. Then it was like, oh, now you're registered in a bunch of counties, which is demonstrably false. Then they're accusing me of a felony. Then they're doxing me. And then they go on further to, I mean, like, so, for example,
Exactly.
I made this whole entire platform on being an ex-conservative influencer. I was open and honest about that from the very beginning, over and over and over again. There's multiple videos of me talking about being an ex-conservative influencer who was in a group called GAG. And that turned into, like, everyone knew that. I have previous videos where millions of people have seen those videos and they're like, awesome, we're glad you changed. Awesome, we're glad you're on this side. And now, because they don't like me, because of microfacial expressions, now it is turned into, oh, we're going to pull up your past that you were open and honest about from the beginning, and we're going to further drag you for that, and we're also going to lie about it and state that instead of, even though you've provided so much proof, including screenshots, including statements from the org, that you left the org back in July, August of last year, that no, we're going to state that you're the active sitting president of the org. And it's like, for one, I was never the fucking president. Don't give me that much credit. But
Yeah,
for this is what Mantis is talking about. What is the point of going online and saying sorry when it'll turn into that? I will never apologize to these people because they're the most bad faith actors to ever exist.
So I'll explain. Grew up as a content creator from like 2010 onward. So I've seen like the rise of Drama Alert. I've seen the rise of all of that. And I've seen how like people have handled drama and people have handled or how things have lessened the blow. Just reaching out directly, not publicly.
Oh, I tried. No, I tried that.
No, not. I'm talking.
Watch
I'm
me
talking
try that.
specifically.
But Mantis has watched me try reaching out to these people privately, and you know what they said? No, this has to be a public conversation. I do not want to speak to in private. Jaden did that. Santana did that. Majority of these creators, the big creators going after me, stated, I do not want to talk to you in private. I want to make this a fiasco on live so I can continue to get more gifts.
It's about clout and control too.
It's all about clout
Yeah.
and control.
I'm sorry. I personally, I'm probably like the worst person to come up at the end of all this because I'm not charitable. I'm not being charitable anymore. I'm not fair about this anymore. Like, I know you guys are still in a space where you think it's all like, we can work together. I'm like way past that. It's a separation thing or it's you guys are going to implode. Like, you need to get away from these people. You do not pander. You do not bend the knee. You do not apologize. You do not have them all jump on your panels and take over and start purity testing. You don't play the game like the way Anne started playing the game. Unfortunately, Anne started getting worried because someone pulled up a screen. No. There's like none of that. This is like outrageous. I've got a drop, but there is Nostra's in the queue. I think it's Nostra Thomas. That's Tom. His other account is gone. So if you want to pull him up on my behalf, I think, yeah, like I love that you guys are still trying to be charitable and fair, but you're going to learn the hard way if you haven't already learned the hard way. Like this is, you got to separate, start talking politics, start talking your politics, liberal politics, be liberal. These people don't get a voice.
I specifically said geek because geek has been consistently in good faith, especially tonight, in comparison to most of the other people.
I hear you. I hear you about geek, but I think geek is probably the most trying to be good faith, but unfortunately I've seen geek lurking around in chats and doing all sorts where she's supporting the people who are bad faith, and then she gets on panels and tries to say, to be fair, guys, let's do that. And she does this thing, and I think it's, in my opinion, it's manipulative, where she acts like it's she's doing the fair thing and trying to like interpret everything in a fair way. But you saw how she accused somebody on the panel just before of being essentially racist, and then when told, hey, don't do that, she acts like she didn't do that. This happens all the time because she's like her beliefs and the way she might speak in a nice way is what I'm trying to say, but I think she's a bullshitter. Okay, that's what I'm saying.
And I think I will be honest to the fact that I think that geek is trying to come to some level of understanding, but you come to a level of understanding behind closed doors. Like, to me, it is bad faith to jump to the internet. There are about 300 goddamn videos from a variety of leftists that are spreading lies about me that I've proved to be false over on YouTube videos. Now, because it's like a 54-minute thing, and that's just a long-ass video. Now, I can't bring that over here. The people who believe these lies, they don't care. They're not going to go to YouTube to find out that they were lied to, and that I have literal...
You can post it here. You can post it here.
54 minutes?
You can post up to... Yeah, you can post it up to 60 minutes.
When did they change that?
They changed it
As long as it's
Yeah.
imported from
I thought it
another
was
source,
3
you
minutes still.
No, you can post. I post plenty up to 60 minutes.
I can post my YouTube videos over here. Oh my God, thank God. That will help. That stuff helps. But that's my issue. Because I'm going to bring that YouTube video over here tomorrow. But that is my issue, is like with like Geek. Instead of reaching out and having these private conversations and trying to work it out behind closed doors, it turns into, I'm going to make 7 different videos. I'm going to make 52 different videos about this topic and perpetuate this narrative instead of having a conversation about it behind closed doors, because these people are so glued to this shit for money and clicks and likes and views. There's leftists I've had conversations with who have been like, oh, Mercedes, you know what? I can tell that you're not that person, and I can tell that you're actually not a bad person. And I've even told them you know, you can keep your videos up and you can make the money from it. And they said, oh, thank you. That's nice. And like, what? You said demonstrably false stuff, and I think that your ability to eat is more important than my fucking reputation. Sure, I do believe that. But at the same time, someone with morals would take down videos if those videos are proven false. But no.
It's performative.
Yeah, they'd rather get paid.
You saw Sunday. Performative. It was like a feeding frenzy of, and I would say toxic feminism that had no idea. There was no intent of goodwill. I realized everything was in bad faith. There was actually a streaming that live of people on the left literally attacking other people on the left, saying this is the worst of the worst.
There were 5 streams restreaming at the exact same time.
The live, when you came up on Shady's on my live Sunday, there was 5 different streams, and it was leftists attacking leftists. And it was, and the craziest part about the purity test is these people are self-declared leaders of it with no credentials. And I pointed out, and several other people pointed out that I said, I've been at this for 20 years. I've been an advocate for this. I've been in this space. I've been a victims advocate. I've taught classes of thousands of people on this topic. And then I'm getting told these ridiculous non-social things, which is, you're a man, you can't talk about this. You can't advocate. You can't talk about the messaging or outreach and how this is going to work. And this isn't your message and all these games. And let's tear down this word. And what does this mean? And they come up and they start analyzing you as an individual with no good intent to move a cause forward, because I actually realize they don't actually do the work. I don't believe they're for the cause. I think it's performative, 1,000%.
Yeah, my biggest issue with it too is like this idea that we're losing ground on young men. I mean, just men in general. We are losing ground on men when it comes to these elections. And this idea that, I'm sorry, but men talking to other men is what needs to happen to help us. There's a reason why Democrats are spending $20 million on figuring out how to talk to men and searching for the next Joe Rogan of the left, or if you will. There's this idea that we need to, I don't even, because it's not even logical, like a bunch of women in a panel screaming about feminism is not going to appeal to the average guy who has taken the red pill. If you think that that's going to be what ropes them back over here, you're living in la la land. Like, I just don't understand where they think that's productive or how that's a possibility.
And that's something that I actually like wholly agree with you on. And because I consider myself center left, specifically a social democrat. So I'm like in between like that moderate and in between like that leftist space. So I see I see where both sides are coming from. But when it comes to a lot of leftists saying that, oh no, we don't need to talk to men at all. Like, no, it's not a matter, like, the problem with that is you need to meet people where they're at. People in this country are not grown up to be taught about systemic problems that still exist. So when they think about sexism or racism or something of that sort, they think interpersonal, they don't think systemic. So when you're telling them, no, you need to deal with your internalized or internalized misogyny and everything, they don't even like think about that. They're like, what? I'm nice to women every day. Like, it's that. And then also, men in this country, like, there is a problem with them not being taught to feel their emotions. And honestly, the only thing that needs to fucking happen, we don't need a Joe Rogan of the left. The only thing that needs to happen is at rallies, politicians just need to say, hey, we're doing this policy because it helps this group. And yeah, that's it.
I mean, I see that. My only issue is that I think what I severely think is the issue is the left is a lot of them are highly intellectual, highly educated people, and they are overestimating the intellectual capacities of some of the people on the other side. Like when we just look at the stats of who's gone to college versus who hasn't amongst party lines, you can see that there is a subset of people who aren't going, like, you go at them with all these words like intersectionality, the patriarchy, all of this stuff, they are not going to get that instantly. And we think that hosting these live panels and pulling a man up here and then basically telling him he is the antithesis of everything that is wrong with society is somehow going to make him be like, yeah, sure, I definitely want to vote over here. That is my biggest issue with how these people handle this stuff. Is it's when I meet men who have like a misogyny problem or have an issue with that, like they have these issues, or maybe they don't recognize their privilege, whatever you want to say, I become friends with these people, and I'm not even talking about those things yet. I'm becoming friends with them. I'm building a relationship with them, bringing that humanity to the table, and then working on those issues. And I'm definitely not using words that I already know that they're not going to understand. The majority of these people who vote Donald Trump, they're in these blue collar spaces. They're in, these hard laborious jobs. Like the idea that some of these folk, many of them haven't even gone to college, that they're going to automatically understand or pick that up. Also piggybacking off of the fact that many of them have been sold this idea from the right that they are inherently bad, that they are, the right is telling them that the left thinks that they are inherently bad, that they're the problem with society, that they shouldn't exist, this or that. We have creators like Tashika who say, let's G-side all white people. I see TikTok after TikTok after TikTok that says, I hate all men, I hate all men, I hate all men. You go to the bio, they voted for Kamala Harris. That is the issue. And I think that, of course, if you come for someone's whole identity of who they are as a person and they can't help that, no, they're never going to vote for you. And it's so obvious. It's common fucking sense. And the left wants to spend $20 million on figuring out when the problem is we can't keep saying we hate all men.
I also need to give pushback on this because I keep seeing it in the comments too of how centrism or liberalism is what got us here. A lot of times people say that because people like Joe Rogan would have voted for Bernie or like stuff like that. Like they supported Bernie. The reason they supported Bernie is because he's a populist and he has reductive rhetoric.
Yeah. Populism really feeds into a lot of these people who are on the right, regardless of which party is implementing populistic rhetoric. The right in general, I don't know. I think they're more attuned to conspiracy. They're more attuned to propaganda, and they definitely fly with populism for sure. Because I know when I was on the right as a right-wing influencer, the biggest running joke was the only Democrat we would have ever voted for was Bernie Sanders, and that's strictly due to the populist rhetoric.
I don't think
this is a centering thing. I'm sorry. I'm about as left as they come. I call myself a Marxist. I argue for Marxist policies. I would like to see us move in that direction. I know that I'm not going to agree with you guys on everything economically speaking, but I do want to grow the movement. I do want to win elections. I do want to stop whatever MAGA is, and I'm willing to be pragmatic to do that.
Yeah, you got to be a realist in this. I think the biggest problem with the left is they live, not the left, but like the far, like the people whoever we're dealing with on here, they're hyper idealistic and they just can't separate. They want to implement these strategies that sound really good and it makes you sound like a great person or this or that, but it's just not realistic, and they keep doing it, and then it doesn't work, and then they wonder why it's not working, and instead of adjusting the strategy, they just yell fascism, you hate women, racism, all the isms.
The left has no chill.
Yeah.
That's the easiest way to put it, is like they are just like, and I'm left, and I'm sitting here going, just the absolute tearing down of every word and gutting of everything and the purity testing, and it's obnoxious. And it's not the way most people think, but also someone pointed out today, it's not the way that most people communicate. And I actually ran like alternatives to, there was a young lady in my Discord and her boyfriend is MAGA. And she ran the, hey, what does this mean to you? And it was running the phrases of it's all men till it's no men. And he came back with a more brilliant messaging, which is crazy. The right is really good at messaging. He said, it takes all men until it's no men. Changing that little thing, saying, hey, look, it's going to take everybody to fix this problem and being inclusive. But the left was so hell-bent on getting people to just you're part of the problem. You have to admit it. That's step one. If you can't get past that, you're not part of this. And I'm going to attack you. And you need to grow your tent instead of throwing people out. And you can evolve people once they're in your tent. But if they never get next to you, if you never have conversations with people, you can't build to that accountability you're seeking or that self-realization you want someone to have. That is not an instant thing. That is a really weak way of thinking. It takes work. It takes time, and it takes engagement. You can't just demand that someone immediately change the way of thinking that they were brought up from potentially their childhood to adulthood.
Yeah.
Their entire friend group. You can't demand that. It's unreasonable.
Yep. And I've heard these leftists, like on your panel, they were stating that no, change only happens in the wake of uncomfortability. And I would argue that
Martin Luther King.
Well, but I would argue the path to get someone to even considering a change in the first place, yeah, it has to be made comfortable. And I might get pushback for saying that, but for example, like when you go to the gym, some people will buy products or certain things to make them more likely to go to the gym. Actively being in the gym obviously is uncomfortable, but some people try to buy things to make them more likely to go to the gym. And when we have leftists on here saying like, oh, I'm going to just severely make you uncomfortable right now immediately, they are never going to walk down the path of uncomfortable change, if you will. What will end up happening is they see your billboard and it says, I hate you, and they walk away. But it's like, and I just don't understand, because from a basic psychological perspective, and you can pick up any self-help book on communication, you can pick up any book rooted in communication, and every single one will echo the same sentiments of insulting people and putting them on the defensive is exactly how a conversation goes to die every single time. And I don't get how they don't understand that. These people are so academic, yet they can't understand that going up to someone who already thinks that the left hate all men and then saying, oh yeah, by the way, I hate you and you're the problem for all of society, that's going to make them be like, yeah, I definitely want to be uncomfortable right now. Make me uncomfortable. I want to change my views on men right now, or views on women right now. It's not happening. And it's like 2 + 2 = 4, and they can't get it. And I think a lot of it, I don't know if they're they're like over intellectualizing these people. And I don't understand how they don't get that.
The canceling is something Mojo and I had spoken about. And when you went to come up on my live, they're like, oh, don't bring this person up, all that. These people who seem to be so inclined to say, don't bring this person from the left up, because this is a big high school full of rumors. I have no idea. I'm not plugged in on drama. I don't really care. But these same people will bring
bad. It's
in the comments. Are they really platforming if they come up and get embarrassed on a panel, or they show who they are and then the world can see it?
Yeah.
I mean, name a talk show that won't have on an opposition person who they absolutely disagree with. That's insane to me.
Exactly. And I mean, like, when we talk about, like, the Ray Ray guy, every single creator on that panel, for one, denounced that racism. For two, I talked to Ray Ray a couple days ago. I consistently talked to Ray Ray. The reason he took down that video was because of the conversation I had with him. That night, after that live, he sent me a wrong message telling me he wants nothing to do with the left, that they're the worst, we're the worst people on the planet. I mean, he went full-blown, I hate you guys, basically. And I talked him off of that, and I said, no, I'm not them. I would never have done that to you. I didn't even want this to happen in the first place. I'm very sorry. I was asked to bring someone up, and then it happened, and talked him off a cliff. And because of me, he deleted that video. Because of our conversations and the relationship that I now have with Ray Ray as a friend, this guy is most likely not going to post. What do you want to happen? What is the solution here? You don't want Ray Ray to post those types of things, right? Well, if you do,
be better.
If you do what had just happened, when he got berated in front of 1,000 different people, and he rejects us on the left, he is most likely to go continue posting that shit. Now, what happens if someone reaches out to him on the left? He feels bad for it. He also apologized to her, one of the black creators on the panel, on over the phone, deleted the video, and won't be posting things like that again. That was the solution that everybody wanted. But because it doesn't look the way they wanted, because they want, I don't know if they're just strung out on like instant gratification. I want drama. I want clicks. I want views. I want to look like I'm the savior of the world here. That behind the door conversation is the reason why he won't be posting those videos anymore. And that did not come from being berated in front of 1,000 people. That come through friendship.
Come on, man.
Well,
You had a lot on this.
yeah, well, I'm risking. I'm trying to build a platform here. I've only been doing this a few months. I built a wonderful group of people. Half of them are telling me not to do this. Half of them are saying, yeah, do it. So I'm not sure. I decided to start the fire, I guess, because I'm sick and tired of period testing, and I'm probably going to lose followers from this too. But
Oh yeah. Yeah, I went down it that night. So it was before that live. It was the minute I saw the UNF America tour implode, I saw it in staring me in the face, because I've been saying this for the past ever since we lost the election. I was so distraught. I had a whole blow up eagle suit that I was going to wear through the streets, just like dunking on MAGA, because I was so excited for Kamala Harris to win. We lost, and I instantly said, okay, well, I know why. Our media is pretty much non-existent. They own 80%, or I think it's 86% of mainstream media, of just like independent media, when it comes to like podcasts, lifestyle culture, all that kind of stuff. And I knew that Charlie Kirk was a major threat as someone who was a right-wing influencer in rooms with this guy. Okay, so I said, okay, all right, what he does from college to college to college is very successful. And I've been saying we need a Turning Point USA of the left, and I kept saying that. So the minute I saw the UNF America tour pop up, I was like, oh, are we doing it? Oh, we're doing it. And I was really excited for that. And then after I watched it implode, it just presented to me what the problem with the left is, and that just, whatever that needs to get abandoned. They are all afraid to speak up. They're all afraid to say anything outside of audience capture because they care more about money than anything else. And for me personally, I actually care about change. And that's when I made the decision, like you are, to say, F this, I know it's right. I know we have to do the tough thing. We can't care about audience capture, and we actually have to fight for this country. And that's why I decided to even attach myself to the tour in the first place, because I said, if they are going to go on these college campuses, if they do want to build chapters and combat Turning Point USA, and I know that's needed, I'm going to do it. The problem is, like you guys have seen, the far, far, far people implode anything that they don't. You can say one wrong thing, and they believe now you should not be allowed to make any kind of change. It doesn't make sense, because it's like you want Kamala Harris to win, you want the blue wing to win, but you keep doing things that cause the right wingers to win. I'm confused. We all know that we need left wing media to proliferate throughout these spaces, but every time someone comes up and tries to build this space, you tear them down because it's not perfect enough for you.
did you go? By the way, did you go? I don't even know if you went to it's A&M, right? Yeah.
I did not go to the first tour, and the reason why I didn't go to the first tour, you're going to love this. I did not go to the first tour because I knew it was going to implode. I already knew it was going to implode. And
You were invited though, right? Or you had some sort of a place to go?
Yeah, I mean, I had a previous message about it, but I just knew the tour was going to implode. And then the day it imploded, I messaged, I think it was the day after the tour, Z messaged me and was like, hey, like, we really want you to go. It was the day before it imploded, that we really want you to go to the next stop. And I told her, I said, no. And I have the screenshots of this. I said, no, I do not think I would fit in with these people, simply because I already could sense the severe need for audience capture within this group. And they already knew that they were the type that if you said anything wrong. I'm not a politically correct person. You know, I've been around these type of people, and I say son of a bitch, and they're calling me a misogynist. So I automatically knew that I could not fit in with these people. And then the next day it imploded.
Okay. There's an upcoming event, if I'm not mistaken, right? Like
Yeah.
in Florida,
Hmm.
with Destiny as the headliner.
Yeah.
Yeah. Are you going?
Yeah.
That's good. It's good. And it's good that Destiny's there. So he's his own kind of pariah, right? He's his own kind of firebrand. I've been listening to him for a couple years. I like I said, I just started doing lives or getting online at all, and speaking out like right after the election or right around the election time. So this is all new to me. Before that, I was just listening.
Oh, yeah, it's wild. Just really quick to the person in the comment section who said, and that stop is going to implode just like the first stop. I don't know if you're a Republican, but I'm going to just assume that you're a leftist saying that. No, it won't stop because the people going on this next tour aren't a bunch of sensitive little snowflakes who cry about everything. We actually want change, and we're not performative. And if you can't tell, like, I'm done with a lot of these people. It's to the point where I've been respectful and sweet and kind over and over and over again, and they don't stop. It's like Jaden comes in here and he was asked 1,000 times to stop interrupting people, and he just, like, I don't know what has gotten into these folk that they think that this is at all productive.
Well,
I tend to-
go ahead, Logan. All right, I'm going. Yeah, so I think that the interesting part is there is so much snowflake on the right that it's this, they turn themselves into victims. Everything you say, it's the world is out to get Donald Trump and all this stuff. And I'm sitting here going, is that not what should be being explored? Is the people that are attacking the left, there's enough of them. There's enough of people that are cheering. Like the fact that the gutted live on Sunday about, hey, maybe we could figure out messaging that works in these different spaces and meet people where they're at, got tore up. And then I was told that entire movement isn't about politics. And I said, if you don't understand how politics plays into Roe versus Wade, Supreme Court justices, and the right for a woman to have agency over her own body, if you don't find the relation between that and what you think you're doing, you're just making a lot of noise and nothing good. Like, you're not affecting change. Change is a political, it is done in the political sphere in many ways. It can be cultural as well. But right now we're seeing where political is beating cultural, because in places like Florida, the majority voted to allow abortion rights, and they still don't have them because it required 60% and they didn't reach that metric. So you can change the culture, but you need to change the culture and the votes to really have lasting change that protects people's rights. And the other communities, I've pointed out that the right represents nobody. Name an othered community that the right sticks up for. But the left attack each other in how they're protecting the other communities. And they're always trying to virtue signal more than the last person, instead of going, yeah, this person is pointing in the right direction, and I'm good with that. Right? We'll build from there. They can't. They always are at the finish line for the start of the race. It's insane.
Yeah, it is, and it's wild because it's like, what I don't understand is all of us want the same thing for the most part over here. Maybe we agree on or disagree on some things, but for the most part, we do want people to be treated with respect. We do want to protect minority groups. We do want to make sure everyone has their rights to be able to do and live freely underneath the designated constitution, to be a human and pursue happiness here, and in a way that's free for everyone to do so. And like, we want that. We don't want you to have less rights than anyone else. And I think, like, that's so important. I don't understand. For example, I got a trans brother. His girlfriend is also trans, and they want to be able, they were able, because they passed very well, and they want to go to some of these countries in which it's a little bit dangerous if you're LGBT. You know what I mean? And but they want to because they have a really big travel bug, and they found safety in the fact that they passed and they could have passports that align with their gender. And now Donald Trump is in an office is in office, and that's not a reality for them. That is real world impact and change that has happened by losing electorally. So when people tell me, like, oh, we have to change the culture before we win elections, or we will never win elections before we change the culture, I just look at them and I'm like, okay, but there are root issues that we could have fixed now, like winning back over the male vote and winning over the votes of minorities who have decided to appeal to the right now, that could have prevented something like that happening. Well, apparently electoral doesn't mean shit to these people, or they'd rather continue screaming at the opposition and thinking that that's going to make people vote for us. And it just doesn't, or talking down to them, or expecting them to understand big words, or expecting them to understand complex situation. I don't know. It's like the complexities. Most of these people, I'm gonna say it, and I know people make fun of me for saying this, but the majority of people on the right voted over there for the vibes of the right. The right has the upper hand on social issues. They believe they have the upper hand on social issues, and they have weaponized social issues in a way that does give them the upper hand. Whereas like the left is so about policy. That's great. The culture over here sucks. I mean, like, it's not. As someone who's been an influencer on both sides, when I was on the right, I could post like just normal pictures of like me hunting or fishing or things like that, and people would like generally support it. Over here, I post a picture, or I guess on this side, I post a picture of me like hunting or fishing, and people are telling me that I'm like a murderer, and I'm like, bro, what is wrong with you guys? What is that?
To critique the left side of the aisle, they need to embrace patriotism again, but in
Yes.
like a positive light.
Yes.
Pretty much like just the idea of, hey, America is like the world superpower, so we should be pushing for more diversity. We should be pushing for everyone to have that opportunity, and that's what we stand for. That's what they need to specifically push, and they need to literally fly the American flag while they do it. That's something that I think has been lost on the left that I think can be improved upon. I think that there are good faith leftists or more leftist actors, and their opinions should be listened to. Maybe not all of them completely implemented, but listened to and said, okay, like, let's continue making strides that way, sort of thing. Like, don't leave them behind. But I think that just happens. I think it needs to happen with all groups of just like politicians and political commentators giving more examples of how their policy will affect certain groups in specific ways. So if, for instance, healthcare, we want to make sure that everyone has affordable healthcare, so you, as a father, can heal quicker so you can play catch with your son.
I think we need to open up the tent. So the right wingers, that's why they won this last election, and they won the House and the Senate. They opened up the tent. They gained a lot of new voters with the youth because of Charlie Kirk and because of what they're doing. This is a movement that's been in the process since 1993 when Rush Limbaugh, or 1991 since Rush Limbaugh came online. So they've been doing this for a long, long time. They've been working on all of these angles for a long, long time, and they spent a lot of time and energy doing this, and they finally got there. I'm not sure how long it can last when the leader of the cult goes away. We'll have to find out, but we need to open up our tent, and there's room. We need people on all sides of this movement. We need people in the middle, we need people in the center of the left, and we need people on the left of the left. And we need everybody working together to convince as many people as we can to attack the right, not to attack the left.
It's pipelines that need to be created, because that's how a lot of people fell into the right, was because of pipelines. I fell into it because of Gamergate, but there's the new age to alt-right pipeline. So
Oh yeah.
The whole Starseed shenanigans, if you know what I'm talking about in that regard. There's the whole red pill. There's the self-help. All of those pipelines that lead to the right, and they're all based in individualism. We need pipelines based in collectivism.
Yes, I agree to that. The pipeline thing is very important when it comes to just different sectors of someone's life. So like we live, like there's like if you eat healthy, your content creators you're following most likely now are MAGA. If you go to the gym, the content creators you are following are now most likely MAGA. If you care about finances, if you care about anything on the entrepreneurial spectrum, the people you are following, I guarantee voted for Donald Trump. They have taken over every single pipeline, and we just lack so severely in these spaces. And that's why I do joke around and say we do need a Joe Rogan of the left. When I say Joe Rogan, I mean like we need someone who is just a goofball per se, but cares about human rights, cares about, oh my gosh, sorry. Hi, Lilo.
Hi.
Hi. I'm not fangirling, but I'm low-key fangirling, and I will get canceled for saying that I'm fangirling over you right now.
Oh my gosh, don't embarrass me right now.
So. What is your input? Lilo voted for Donald Trump. Lilo, you were a lifelong Democrat beforehand?
Yes.
I would love to hear you just talk, because I know you got a lot of opinions on this.
Yes, I feel like, because I've been in this live for a good couple of hours now, and I feel like this is the biggest example of why a lot of us voted for Donald Trump this time. Because it started off as a live, like talking about the Unfuck America tour, trying to get something going, and then it becomes everybody just eating each other in like 5 seconds. And I feel like the reason it imploded to begin with is because the people that started it were like reacting to Charlie Kirk instead of trying to replicate what Charlie Kirk was doing. Does that make sense? Like, it feels like everything that the left does right now is so reactionary, and it doesn't feel like it has a purpose behind it anymore.
Well,
Does that make sense?
I can sort of agree with that, but also it's right now the right wing controls the media apparatus, so the left is in reaction to the right.
I feel like, I guess I disagree with that take, because like even the majority, like Fox News is the only news outlet there that I consider right leaning.
We're talking about independent.
Really?
So like, no, I can agree that like whether independent or left wing owns the majority of like the conglomerate or like the mainstream. But when we talk about independent, so what people normally consume online, for example, like health content, oftentimes they're going to be people from the Maha community, or when we include like gym content has now gone more to the MAGA side. And a lot of it is because the left demonizes so many of these things. But then when it comes to like Gamergate, which was like specifically like a right-wing alt pipeline, or even when it comes to entrepreneurial content. And as someone who has followed all paths of those content for ever since I had social media, yeah, they all voted for Donald Trump. I mean, I think from an independent, and I think there's stats on it, from an independent perspective, the majority of independent, when we say media, we're talking about like social media. We're not just talking about like, we're not talking about news outlets.
Yeah,
Lilo said Fox News, and I think you're missing out on Newsmax, OAN. I think you're missing out on the Daily Wire, which is now some sort of a news organization. And yes, we absolutely do need a Joe Rogan on the left. I don't know what that's going to look like. I don't know what it should be. I think everybody's been saying that. Nobody has anybody to point a finger at. So I'm not sure, but definitely the right-wing media is much larger than the left-wing media now.
Midas Touch is doing a lot of heavy lifting.
Yeah.
Excellent podcasts are out there for Pod Save America, and I don't know. Like the problem is that some of this media is tied to different demographics, age-wise, for exposure. So if you have a full deck of cards, you're going to reach the most people. And so you could be good on social media, bad on mass media, and you're not going to get a lot of the older vote. And those are people who turn up and turn out. And so strategically, I do think the biggest part is that there were people in here watching and absolutely reveling in the infighting. and it validates what they think is. It doesn't say anything about our policy positions. It doesn't say anything about the economic outcomes of a Democratic president. It literally is. It's the politics has nothing to do with actual politics anymore. It's turned into sports teams and entertainment and see how crazy these people are. That's why I'm on this side, right? Or I don't feel welcome here. I'd never fit in there. That's what it's devolved to, and it's not. The message and the goals of the left are so valid, and they're actually like measurable. They're not just like, yeah, we're gonna give everybody everything, and we're gonna make the most of everything, and we're gonna just tell everyone we're gonna promise all these unrealistic goals. The left actually has plans in many regards to do things, and it's sad to see them just get torn apart by people arguing the meaning of a word for an hour.
Yes, that is exactly what I'm talking about, because that's why I voted left my entire life, because I felt like they were the party that had values and were very loud and outspoken about their values. And a lot of them aligned with what I believe, but I feel like now they have lost the plot of that platform. Like they start with a good idea, but then like you said, they get caught up on one little thing that somebody said, and then it's totally lost. Everything's gone.
Yep. Yep, 100%. And it's, I don't know, it's very frustrating because, for example, like you would say that my message is pairing better with MAGA. Like MAGA people are more willing to listen to me than the far leftists who were screaming on this panel earlier. Would you agree to that statement?
100%.
That is why I do what I do, and that is why I take the approach I take. No matter how much my party hates me, I am not here to appease my party. I'm here to expand it and try to fix it. And I want to do that by actually having communications with you guys. The amount of people from your side who has now followed me and has said, Mercedes, I want to have conversations with you. I want to talk to you. I want you to help fix this party because it's something that I might want to go back to in the future, but I just can't right now because the state of this party is in shambles. And I said, yeah, I love hearing your concerns. Let's talk about it. I approached you in a way, you approached me in a way, very sweet, very respectful. I think you're cool. I would go fishing with you anytime. But there's the subset of people who just can't get behind that. And they look at you and you were a lifelong Democrat before this, they would call you a fascist and a Nazi.
Literally, and they did. The second that I said, I had lifelong friends that I have had so many discussions with, and we have very politely agreed to disagree on a lot of different things. And then all of a sudden I say that I'm thinking about voting for Donald Trump, and it's like, you're a fascist, you're a bigot. How could you support someone who would do this? How could you support someone who would do that? And it's like, you know me as a person. And we've had these conversations before, and all of a sudden your opinion about me has changed based off of one thing that I said.
Yep. The goal needs to be figuring out why you guys voted that way and not just blaming you for voting that way.
Right.
I do agree that like they should have asked before just making accusations if that was the case. However, one of the things that I feel like, and it's been lost on a lot of the public whenever it comes to voting, is the idea of you're not only just picking on your own values, you're also choosing what you think is best for the entire country. So if what Donald Trump stands for also steps over what those people stood for themselves, it's understandable that there is animosity in that regard, because they feel like they feel betrayed by that, because they trust you, or they would trust you to have their best interests at heart, and at that point they feel like you don't.
But I'd argue the people who voted for Trump, so like, okay, for example, when someone comes out here and they say you voted for Trump because you want to destroy minority groups, or you don't like minority groups, or this or that, or you're voting to take away the rights of people, I'd argue most people who voted for Trump don't think that voting for Trump is doing that. They don't believe voting for Trump is doing that. So they're not purposely casting a vote and saying, yeah, I really hope to take away the rights of minority groups. You know what I mean? So I think where the left gets it wrong is assuming that they voted that way in order to do those things, when most people on the right didn't do that. They don't think they did that. Or to an extent, okay, for example, like the passport issue is a great issue. I believe, when someone, we're above the age of 18, we're talking about trans people who now have to have their passport represented by the opposite gender. I think that can be dangerous in spaces like when they're traveling across the country, and now you're there in a country that's more hostile. The person at TSA or the person within that country is looking at, a female, and they're reading male on the passport. That person has now been put in danger in that country. That is a direct vote of Donald Trump, of like getting in Donald Trump. That is a direct correlation of Donald Trump being president. But I don't think that these people voted knowing or understanding that that would happen. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. What I'm speaking to is more so a general problem with overall in America, because you see this in not just with people who voted for Trump, but you also see it with people who abstained from voting for Harris in this election to protest like Palestine, because of their own core values. They decided to turn their backs on the minorities that are actually in this country that would be affected by Donald Trump. So it's more so a problem. And I kind of wanted to bring that to the forefront because I feel like a lot of people just don't take that into account.
Yeah, what I'm saying is I don't think that they're ever taking that into account because it's not in their scope of vision. So when you say like they're voting in a way that stomps on other people, I think they think they're voting in a way that uplifts like people. Like that's where the conversation has to be had about what's actually going on, what is in the legislation, who's hurting people more, like figuring out what the harm actually is and having the conversations on what that harm is. But it's hard to get there and even have conversations with them about what could be harming from Donald Trump's presidency if the door that we open up to have those conversations is you're a fascist, you're a Yahtzee, this and that. So I agree with you to the extent that, yes, Donald Trump has passed policy that has directly hurted people. We look at the people in West Virginia who now, ever since, I think it was Nixon, they've been able to get black lung testing because they work in the coal mines. And as a result of Donald Trump, they now are not getting, and that has been free for them since Nixon because they're working in the coal mines. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Now they don't have access to that, and they're taking the Trump administration to court because of that vote. But how can I ever relate that to MAGA if they don't even want to listen to me because their instant perception of me is I'm going to scream at them and call them names?
No, I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask a question if I can.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Lilo, do you ever travel into liberal lives at all? Or do you ever talk on panels that liberals are on?
No. This is actually the first live that I've ever been in, but I actually do follow a lot of liberal creators, yes.
Okay. I do this every day. So I start my morning by talking to one person at a time, one Trump supporter at a time, and I ask questions. I don't make any assumptions about anybody. I refuse to do so. I'm trying to teach everybody else not to do so. Don't make any assumptions. Ask questions. And then I try to have conversations, calm conversations, talk about the policies, the issues, everything that's going on today, why they might have voted for Trump, and try to come to some sort of agreement on a couple things if I can, and then move on to the next person. And then I start up panels that are 4 and 4. I try and get 4 liberals and 4 conservatives, and we try and have conversations about whatever's happening today. So whatever the headlines are, whatever happened today, whatever Trump said today, we try and have conversations about that. I am looking for good conversations with people I disagree with, so I don't make assumptions. I do, however, understand that there are a lot of liberals out there that do make a lot of assumptions, and they will call names before they'll ask questions. I get that, and I'd like to put an end to that too if we can.
Yes, agreed.
Are you still, Lilo, are you still happy with your vote, the way things are going, or do you have some reservations from things you've seen, or where are you at on it?
I mean, I'm not going to say that the way that he's going about everything is perfect because, like I said, going into the election, I mean, I was looking for the Democratic Party to put anybody up that I felt like that I had faith in. I guess, as a candidate. And I didn't have faith in Joe Biden. And then when they just like pushed him out and then installed Kamala, I really didn't have a lot of faith in her either. And so I kind of just started exploring, you know, what is Trump actually saying? What is his ideas on these issues? And like I said, I don't like, yes, do I feel like maybe we have too many immigrants in the country? Yes. Do I love the way that he's going about it? No. But I also feel like the way that Trump is going about it is a reactionary of the government not doing anything about stuff for so long that I feel like people are just psyched about what he's doing because it feels like, okay, we're finally getting momentum. Does that make sense?
No.
Like, I don't agree with it, but I feel like that's where a lot of people are coming from with it. Like,
well, he has the House and Senate, right? And so Langford bill got shot down. And so the question was, all right, you got the House and Senate. You guys said HR2 is it. Bring HR2 to the floor. What it feels like is, because that's a lasting change. There hasn't been legislation on the border since 96. There's been executive orders. There's been little slight changes. But so my point, I don't feel like, you know, first term, we're still waiting on a healthcare plan. The second chance and the grace that was extended to him confuses me because every excuse was made in the world. And it's hard because the left is the opposite. There are no excuses for any type of failure or deviation on the left. Like that was the people that were the pro-Palestine, you know, your policy isn't good enough, I'm going to sit it out, right? So I guess I don't understand. It's been 5 months of blaming somebody who's not in office. You know, so I don't know, like, everything is Biden's fault. And I said, that's cool. But like, you were brought in to put solutions into place. So is he doing that? And you're saying, well, maybe, but it's a little not up to par. I don't know. Like when are all the solutions and all the promises going to start really rolling in, I guess?
Are you stating, just to clarify, are you stating that instead of just like, because I agree, like the executive order after executive order is not a lasting solution, and there has to be legislation brought to the table. And if Donald Trump does not bring legislation to the table in order to, you know, like really fix the border issue or reform it in some kind of way, then yeah, for sure, like that's not doing anything. But I think like, and I would need to look up the history of this, but so the last border reform you said where was 19 when?
96.
So, and this is the problem with, I don't know if it's bipartisan politics. I don't know if it's the fact that maybe bills were brought up, because I know with HR2, Donald Trump I think that one is the one that Donald Trump specifically called to have shot down so that he could.
No. That was
the Langford.
Langford/Murphy. Yeah.
Yeah, Langford. He wanted that one specifically shot down so he could run on the issue, which I don't think is productive. And I think that we're getting to this point where politicians keep wanting to have issues to run on, and the problem keeps getting perpetuated. Instead of like 1962, how is that what you said? Why?
No, 96. 96.
96. Okay, 1996. Yeah. Why has like not a single like why? Can someone explain to me why either a Democrat or Republican can't pass border legislation? Because like
I guess that's what I'm getting at when I say that people voted for Donald Trump, because we're just tired of seeing the same people get voted in over and over and over, and nothing has happened. Nothing has happened. And then people say, well, you know, Donald Trump will say he wants to do something. They say, well, he can't do anything without Congress. And I guess that's the point that we're trying to make, is that Congress has clearly been inactive the whole time that they've been in there. They don't want to push through anything on both sides, Republican and Democrat in Congress.
Yeah. I think now he has an edge, and I think when we talk about the big, beautiful bill and things like that, I think he has an edge now in order to push border legislation. If he doesn't do it, it just confirms for me the idea that Republicans don't want to fix the border because they want to keep running on it. And
I could be wrong on this issue, but my only pushback on that would be on that specific bill. If I'm not mistaken, I believe that on the back of that border bill was more additional money sent to Ukraine. And I believe that's why he told them not to sign on it, because he didn't want to support that war. I guess he didn't want to support that bill, and people listened to him on that issue.
So I want to clear this up with that. they tried passing it multiple times. So they tried passing it as like a whole package, and then they tried passing it separately on its own, the Langford bill, and it still got shot down.
Yeah.
So
did the funding pass? Like they passed.
It did.
Yeah, the
They
funding passed
ended up
separately.
passing
Yes.
the funding. The bill was together. The back end that you're talking about, our same Congress shot down the bill, threw it away, and then said we're going to pass that funding anyways. So our government passed that funding and then still said, "Oh, bye to the border bill."
Right.
And this is a
part of it-
bipartisan bill. It was Langford, Murphy, and Sinema. So there was a moderate Democrat and a Republican that actually wrote the bill. It was completely bipartisan, and it was supposed to pass easily until Donald Trump said something about it.
And Biden, like for all the claims, right? So this is the reality. I like the objective reality, and then you can have a real discussion. His first week in office, the Biden administration, he had the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021 that was actually intended to pathway for dreamers. It was going to take immigrants that are working, that are already here in farms, give them a background check, potential pathway for citizenship, 5 years, paying some taxes, getting billed in, but realizing from a pragmatic standpoint that our industries do lean on some of these workers and things of that nature. So it wasn't like the first attempt of the left was the year before the election. And so I'm just big picture American. I really would love to see politicians and policies reflect the greater good for the country. And I think it's hard to run on immigration being a great threat and these people coming over a great threat and then voting down and pushing to vote down a bill that would have actually helped reduce that threat. It would have controlled the border better. But for now, you got military deployed away from their families, and they're going to do that for 4 years. Someone else is going to get elected, and they're going to call them all home. And that's not a solution. That's a Band-Aid, and you placated your base.
Yeah, and I'd also agree to the fact that if a Democrat is elected in the next election and they do not propose any legislation to do anything positive for the border, they're just as much at fault. You know what I mean? Because I do believe in a strong border. It's just something I believe in, and I believe in a a better path to citizenship. Because right now there's people who have been applying for citizenship for they're 10 years into their application. The system is just so messed up, and it is the reason why a lot of people just come over here. And it's like the solution to that would be to put legislation forward that does make a faster path to citizenship, or a better or a more efficient path to citizenship, I should say.
Most agree. Most people
agree to a strong border and a better, more efficient path to citizenship. And someone, either side, needs to start putting that legislation forward, and I just don't see that happening. Again, and
I can guarantee you, if Dems win in the midterms, if they win the House, they will. This will be one of their first priorities, is to put a border bill forth. Probably just the Murphy bill all over again.
Which is the Langford bill, but yes, without the funding, they renamed it and submitted it back as Murphy bill. I've read the whole thing, 200 and some pages, and it's crazy, because it covered down even on the people that serve next to the military in Afghanistan and their pathway, language for the people that serve in the military, and it shored up some problems with the negative, so some people that serve in the military still had trouble obtaining citizenship, which is wrong. It cleaned up a lot of things. It provided funding, border wall, more DHS agents. It took the asylum process from 7 years down to 1 year, which a lot of people come here, lie about why they're seeking asylum. They work for 7 years, and then we only accept 10% of those people after all that stuff plays out. But they got to send money back to their family and be here for 7 years. And so there's an incentive to even approach the border in bad faith and do that. If you can get that down to 12 months, you're going to start seeing a lot less foot traffic at the border, and you might get more people that really just are really trying to come here because they need help. And the whole point of the asylum, when that came into play, is it was post-World War II guilt, because we turned away Jewish people that were asking for help during World War II. And post-World War II, that came into play and said, look, we're never again going to be on the wrong side of that history. And I think that's an important context when we're thinking about these things.
And I'm going to apologize. I'm sorry. I know that this live isn't about this, but we are, Brad and I are policy wonks. So we read these bills, we go through them, we talk about them, we tear them apart, we bring people in to tear them apart. We have discussions that last for hours and hours and hours about each individual piece of legislation. This is something we do every day, something we enjoy doing. So I know that this live isn't about that, but that's our gut reaction to this kind of situation, I guess.
Yeah.
So I'm sorry.
And then the border's one aspect of it, but then I also believe that like Republicans in general are voting the way they are because I think a lot of them, and just from the conservative influence, being an ex-conservative influencer, I think many conservatives vote the way they do because they aren't policy nuts and they're not diving into the policy. Because my whole existence as a conservative was because I was, I was raised that way, deeply raised that way, and I was a lifelong conservative up until August of last year. And it's because the policy matters more to me. And I do see that there's policy being passed by the left that I generally agree with more. I do believe that the left has and I'm going to say it, they have a vibe issue. Like people are so turned off by Democrats because if this is what is happening in this live was, the epitome of what the Democrat Party is, and this is what was being shown. These calm conversations where we're breaking down policy. We're like, hey, actually, this is what had happened here. Blah 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 blah. I think a lot of conservatives, because that's something that I fought against hard when I was a conservative, because I kept hearing people say the bill had pork, the bill had pork, the bill had pork, but none of them was reporting on the fact that even when they separated the bill, they still passed the pork and then dropped off the border bill simply because Donald Trump wanted to run on it and made that call. And it's like that's something that frustrated me as a conservative who wanted a stronger border. In my mind, I'm thinking, okay, if Donald Trump wants a stronger border, why would he call for that bill to be, shot down? Like that didn't make sense to me. And those are the things policy-wise that drove me from the Conservative Party. I'm over here now, and I see why people stay over there because the culture on the left is so toxic.
And if I may push back on that, I feel like that's why a lot of people like me feel the opposite. Because just because something can be linked together doesn't mean it necessarily is linked together. Because, like, for instance, if I'm understanding correctly, what you're saying is that when the bill was together with all the extra stuff in it is when Donald Trump said, kill it because we don't want all this extra stuff in there. And then they separated it and they still pushed the other stuff through and left the border off. But if he was out of the situation beyond that, like before that, then like I feel like that reflects more on my point that Congress just wants to be inactive no matter whether Donald Trump is involved or not. And I feel like what you're saying when you're saying that he has that much power over them is like, wouldn't that make him the best qualified to make decisions, I guess, if he has that much power in Congress already and not even being elected?
Yeah, I'd agree that just from the conservative standpoint, like, because I think like that argument, Donald Trump should not be able. We separate the three branches of government for a reason, and Donald Trump should not be able to pressure people within Congress from doing their job. So, and we also look at Republicans were the ones who caused it not to pass. So I look at it this way. I say Republicans when I was over on that side, I was going to vote for Donald Trump, but at heart, I was just like a Republican, a normal Republican. And my biggest issue was Republicans state that they care about the border. Whether Donald Trump said to do it or not, I still have an issue, which he did call it. He told them to shoot it down. But whether or not he did that, I still take issue with the fact that Republicans who we elect off of the basis of them stating that they want to protect the border still decided to vote against it regardless. And when we talk about, okay, so maybe he said, don't pass this bill because I don't like, in your opinion or your perception, don't pass this bill because I don't like the pork. Okay, the pork gets dropped off. Conservatives, if they cared about the border, they still should have passed that bill in Congress because that's why people elect conservatives, is because they care about the border.
Right, but I don't see how that directly proves that Donald Trump wants to run on the issue more than it proves that the Republicans in Congress don't care about the border, I guess.
Republicans in general want to. So I guess for me, it's like Donald Trump is a unique candidate in the way that maybe people don't view him as Republicans, but bills get passed because of the people we elect. So, for example, if you vote for Donald Trump, you're most likely going to vote down ballot red. And when you vote down ballot red, you'd expect the people who you're voting for, who are red, to enact the policy that you hope that they vote for. So when they get elected and then they purposely vote against the border bill that's supposed to secure the border, that's like, it's even separating the fact of it being a problem with Donald Trump. It's my problem with conservatives. So, or just Republicans in general, whether it be Donald Trump making that call and even insinuating that the bill should have been taken down, along with the fact of just like conservatives in general having trust in them to pass the border bill and then them not doing it, regardless of why. If that border bill was ushered in bipartisanly, partially by conservatives.
There was a bunch of excuses about he came out and said, you can blame me for this not passing. Langford came out and said, hey, like we were told if we voted for this, that we would get primary, blah, 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 blah. Like, so that all happened. But the excuse that we got in a lot of these arguments, and we get down to the granular level with this thing in a lot of the lives, there's all different flavors to these lives, and they all have a place for sure. But we'll get down to it, and someone will say, well, what about HR 2? It was a purely Republican, non-negotiated bill for the border. And it didn't cover Dreamers, which was a lot of Democrats' contention. It had some language that they thought was beyond their palate, right? For a way to put it. We're months into this administration. If Biden could, on day one of his office, put forth the U.S. Citizenship Act, what is stopping the Republicans right now who have the House and Senate from passing border legislation? What's the excuse now that the dog caught the car? So where's the accountability for good governance right now? I mean, there's a whole lot of finger pointing and blaming other parties, but I'm saying, like, you're in charge now. Do your thing. Even if it's not the one the Democrats want, something. Executive orders aren't it. It's lazy.
Are you saying apart from the budget reconciliation bill?
The budget reconciliation, it gave some resources. Yeah. But it didn't ultimately, they're still leaning on the Department of Defense through deployments, and Posse Comitatus is extremely clear. The United States military should not be domestically operating in a law enforcement capacity. And they tried expanding some zones off some bases down south, and immigrants wandered onto these bases, and there was no trespassing signs. And they grabbed them up, and the courts just said, yo, you can't do that. They weren't even marked, but they were trying to say, if we just make the bases bigger, then the military can operate as if people wandered onto a base. And the courts are like, that's silly. Actual legislation.
So you're saying that right now that the border provisions in the budget reconciliation are not going to do nearly as much good as would have happened in the previous bill, right? In the one that was going to be passed before Trump shot it down.
Correct. 1,000%.
Yeah. And then my other issue is too that because it's done through budget reconciliation, it can just be revoked, just like we saw happen with the IRA, right? Like,
no, that's not right.
The IRA wasn't revoked.
Well, we're seeing it get gutted, right? So we have some really cool clean energy provisions that were passed, but unfortunately they were passed along partisan lines. And so the next administration, if they get a shot and they're in power and they're in power and they can I really, really just believe in reaching across the aisle. And I feel like
I just wanted to give context for everyone.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Sorry, I just jumped in and started asking questions. But I really respect what you guys are doing and love it. I'm going to be on the tour and think that these conversations are super critical. Democrats is really, really exciting to me. I think that's great. They're creating that space and that you guys are having this conversation. So
yeah,
thanks for hopping on.
Everyone should follow Lilo. I'm gonna get canceled because I know, but I think Lilo's
Yeah. Because I feel like that's why I follow Mercedes, because I saw her video and I feel like me and her are trying to do the same thing. Like on my side of the aisle, I'm not engaging in the whole like back and forth of, oh, you believe this, oh, you believe this, and blah, blah, and just vitriol back and forth. I don't want that. I feel like that is what is killing us on both sides. That's why nobody can get along.
Yeah.
The idea of the kind of lives that I typically run, Sunday got out of hand because it turned into a rage bait click fest, but that was 8 hours of pain. But usually like Mojo's lives, generally my lives, and Mercedes, your lives have seen, except you were having a day today like I had Sunday.
It was premeditated. We expected all of that to happen. Yeah, we planned every single thing that had happened was completely planned.
Yeah, good faith. People that want to have discussions in good faith are who I like to engage in, and that goes for people on the left and right. Because I'm telling you, we've identified and we've all agreed there are plenty of people that are on the left that are not in good faith, and there are plenty of people on the right that are not in good faith. And radical, if I added you too, because there's certain people that'll get bored stiff diving into policy, but I am not one of them. So there's a time and a place for all of it. But yeah, I really do. And now that I know you're on the right too, and you're talking like. There was 5 bills passed in the first 100 days, and like 3 of them were complete nonsense. One was the Lake and Riley bill, and then I can't remember what the other one was off the top of my head. Nothing earth shattering. What are your expectations, and are they being met?
Mine? Oh gosh, no. Oh gosh, no.
Yeah,
no,
same.
not at all. I want meaningful legislation. I want us to work on, right now we're on a path towards revolution that I'm not comfortable with. I want revolutionary legislation, and I haven't seen that for a while, and I want legislation that lasts. So I'm a bit weird. I'm a Republican climate activist. I have been since 2017. I've been trying to get Democrats and Republicans to work together on really good legislation that, would free market legislation Republicans can get behind to fix that issue, and just not been seeing any headway. And I see a lot of the same stuff right now. I mean, it's just we're just taking turns at bat and saying, okay, now we're in power. We're going to do everything that we can to get stuff around this impediment on the other side, and then power switches hands and the same thing happens. And that's what's happening right now. I'm not happy with it at all. I think it speaks to the state of our country and the state of politics, and I'm just trying to figure out a way around that.
Well, to me, I think it speaks to, like, just the two-party system as a whole speaks to the fact that it has created this narrative that there is binary thinking around everything. You're either for or against something, and there's no in-between. And it's like that is preventing anybody from getting anything done, because it's this or it's that. And if it's not this or that, then it's nothing. And it's like, we have to meet in the middle at some point, or else, yes, all we're getting is nothing.
Mojo and Brad, I'd be interested in your thoughts, and everybody, but you guys are policy wonks. So one thing I realized as I've done a bunch of breakdowns on this, on the Big Beautiful Bill Act, and I really don't like most of it. There's a few things that I like, but on the whole, I don't really like it. And what's frustrating is that the scope of change that you can do with budget reconciliation really makes it so that you could really make some really big changes. You could absolutely balance the budget, and Republicans have been saying we need to balance the budget, and this doesn't do that. And for me, that's the ultimate hypocrisy. But on the other side, when we had the IRA, you could also change the entire tax code and take out a whole bunch of loopholes that benefit the rich and make it so that they don't have to ever pay taxes. And that wasn't fixed back when the IRA was passed. And so I almost feel like we're all talking here, and I think that Lilo, you share a lot of goals that Mercedes and Mojo and Brad and Snake Oil Politics all have, but we don't have the people in place. No matter which party has their turn at bat with basically an unblockable bill, it doesn't seem like the things that both parties run on are getting fixed when they have those chances. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I agree.
That's why I keep coming back to Congress. I feel like it doesn't really matter right now who we elect in until something in Congress changes. We have had the same people in here for years and years and years, and it's just very clear that no matter who's in, they don't care.
Yeah.
Well, I know we're speaking a lot of generalities, so like I'd like to get more specific. Lila, what would you like policy wise, or like what would you like to see?
As far as
Like if policy is enacted, like what would you like to see?
I mean, I don't know. I feel like for me, the biggest issue that I voted on was probably the economy because issue. So that's what I'm wanting to see the most policy on right now is something that makes it to where I can live a comfortable life for my kids.
So less taxes, grocery prices going down, gas prices going down.
Yes. Like I said, I'm not the best at talking like policy. That's not like exactly my.
Yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I got something I don't understand if this doesn't get consensus, right? So this is something we all should agree on. Every year, Mojo knows what I'm about to say. Every year, there is just under $700 billion a year left in uncollected taxes. So 700 billion. So you're going after SNAP fraud is between 9 and 40 billion over 10 years. But 700 billion every year is left in uncollected taxes. The IRA added IRS agents. They were hired and targeted to go after the ultra wealthy and the people who are with complicated taxes that require like forensic accountants, things like that. I just, the under resourcing of the IRS is literally costing us 2/3 of $1 trillion every single year in money that is owed under law. And I pay my taxes and I pay my taxes every year. And I feel like that's the law we all should. Now, the tax code, there were no tax loopholes closed under the most recent big, beautiful bill. They weren't closed. The carried interest loophole that was promised by Trump to close in 2016 is wide open. To your point, centrist, Biden could have handled it. I'm with you. He added IRS agents in the IRA, so I'll give him that. But then Trump just got rid of those. so it's a game of whack-a-mole. But there is one thing that's really that I learned about that's actually about to happen to the big beautiful bill, which is it's going to get a bird wash, which is the bird rule from I think 2010, and the bill gets scrubbed through the Senate to make sure that nothing that's in there is not related to budgetary issues.
Yep.
That's the only way they can use reconciliation. It has to be
clean budget.
Something to do it. Yeah.
And it can't
raise revenue or spend it.
What's that?
It has to raise revenue or spend it, right?
But it can't extend past 10 years. So there's a question whether they can just grandfather in TCJA tax cuts forever. But there was something in there that was very contentious for people on the right and left, which I'm glad to say I think is going to be ripped out, which is the one where it talked about not having to listen to the rulings of the courts in certain types of cases. That they would determine what that meant, interpret it for themselves. Then there was something about like silencers for firearms that was in there, which is weird.
Yeah, the $200 removing the $200 tax on silencers.
Yeah, so somehow there's people that are speculating as to what doesn't fit. So there was some things that were put in there that so it may change. It has to change.
It has to, yeah. No, so the way that works, I worked a lot on this when the IRA was going through because we were trying to get a carbon fee and dividend passed. So the way it works is there's this random person in the Senate called the Senate parliamentarian.
Yeah.
They're not elected. And then they are in charge of going through the budget line item by line item, no matter how big it is, and saying, okay, what in here qualifies and can actually be done, and then they have to rewrite the whole bill. So I think you're right. I think there's a lot of stuff in here that can't be in there, and I'm hoping things like not being able to charge for contempt of, not being able to use federal funds to enforce contempt of court, like that. Absolutely, I'm praying that they say no, this is baloney, and they can't do that.
The parliamentarian, she is the longest serving one, I think, in the history of the Senate.
Oh,
She's
great.
been there, what, 13 years? So
Great. I hope she sticks around.
Yeah, she's not like
Can
some
Trump fire
partisan
her?
hack one way or another.
Yeah, can Trump fire her? You know?
No, she serves at the pleasure of
The president of the Senate, I think.
Correct.
Not
but
the
I don't
vice
know if
president,
it's an
but the president.
appointment or I'm not really too sure on that. But it's interesting that I'm learning so much during this trying time.
Yeah.
Aren't we all?
Yeah.
I want to
Well,
clarify something too. I want
Oh,
to
go ahead,
clarify
Moses.
something too.
Yeah.
Reconciliation simply means that they don't need to have 60 votes to overcome a filibuster. It means that they can pass whatever bill it is for budgetary purposes or tax purposes, and they can do it with a 50+1 majority.
Yeah.
It forgoes the filibuster.
There's no filibuster. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is funny because Democrats, I had so many of my Democratic friends and colleagues online last year, and this is that we're so mad about the filibuster, and we're like, man, the filibuster needs to go. We need to abolish the filibuster. And I really want to ask them now, hey, are you just so glad that nothing happened to the filibuster?
Yeah.
The
Anyway.
nuclear option.
So Lilo, can I ask you a few questions?
Yeah.
So, would you say that it would have been better for that bill to pass? Let's just assume that it's a good faith bill. It had bipartisan support, and let's take out the Ukraine portion. Let's say that you can't fact check everything right now, but let's assume that everybody's right, that the Ukraine portion was taken out, and then they tried to pass the bill again. Do you think having that, significant resources at the border is a good thing or a bad thing? Like with this bill, if it was a bipartisan bill that then cannot be revoked by a partisan, House and Senate later.
Oh, definitely a good thing.
Okay, cool. No, I think I thought you'd say that, and I think that we would all agree with that. I think where these conversations get hard is when we try to force you to say, so therefore somebody who voted for Trump is wrong or bad, right? Like there was a little bit of defensiveness coming up, and I'm guessing that was part of it because you feel like A, you haven't researched it, and B, that's almost a betrayal to those that that voted for Trump. Is that fair?
Oh no, that's why I said to begin with, like, correct me if I'm wrong, because that was just my impression on the situation of what I could recall about it.
Gotcha. Yeah. Okay. So it sounds like there's a bit of agreement that, hey, maybe this bill, it would have been good. Maybe, is there agreement here that, hey, maybe Trump messed up in this situation? Sure, there's other good things maybe that he's done, but maybe this was not a good thing.
Yeah, definitely. Like I said, now that I realized how much influence he had, I guess I thought that he only had influence on it when it was combined. You know what I'm saying? But if he still had that influence over the whole situation, then yeah, totally. That was wrong.
Yeah. No,
I don't know enough. I don't know if anyone here does, but is Mercedes, are you pro-choice, pro-life? I'm not sure.
she's here.
Yeah.
Sorry, guys. Sorry. So I got my ovary removed this morning, so I'm in bed. But I'm yeah.
What a weak excuse, by the way.
Yeah.
Typical snowflake.
I had an ovarian cyst like the size of a pool ball, and they had to remove the ovary in my fallopian tube, and that was like earlier today, and then here I am. So I didn't hear the question, but I'm also in bed. I just want to let you guys keep going because I think this conversation is so fire.
And can I just say, as a woman, you were a beast for getting on here and doing that.
Yeah, that's crazy that you plan these two things on the same day.
Freaking Mercedes,
That's
you're
pretty
amazing.
crazy.
Thank you guys. Yeah, that's why that picture that is up on the chair, I put that up there yesterday because I didn't think I was going to be able to do it. And I was just going to have like the blank photo of me with my cows. And then,
Yeah,
and I was like,
Mercedes. Why don't you just pull yourself up by the bootstraps and get out of bed? Like,
Thank you, guys.
Liberal snowflake behavior right now, Mercedes.
yeah, literally.
I'm a farmer. You know what I mean? Like, you just do that shit.
I don't know enough about your position because I know you came from the right, and I'm not sure. Are you pro-life or pro-choice?
I'm pro-choice, but I think
I'm not here to eat you either. I'm not. We ain't like that. So.
No, you're good. I think my cutoff is like that. I think I have a lower cutoff than other people, though.
Okay.
And I'd also argue that one of my issues with like the choice, I don't want to say pro-choice movement, because it's not that. It's like there are some people on the left who I think turn people on the right off of having discussions because they say things like they dehumanize a life. It is a life at the end of the day. So when we say things like "yeetus the fetus" or like when we say like it's a parasitic this and that, I think a lot of people are not even open into like pro-choice conversations because they think that, you know. So yeah, I mean, I could go into that. For me, everything.
We've heard it.
Yeah, everything is about culture, and like a lot of people do operate off of vibes and feelings. I mean, it's just we're emotional beings as humans. So if you're going to expect a pro-lifer to hear your stance, and then your stance is like, I hate fetus, like that's just crazy to me.
Yeah, I just had my 9th AB, so I'm gonna get my 10th tomorrow, which means I'll be able to get a free coffee from my punch card.
Yeah, it's that. Yes.
Yeah, so I have an unassailable because we've been talking across the aisle for a long time, and Mojo and I have actively looked at like, hey, what's some policies, right, that we could agree on? So we look for common ground at sometimes. Mm-hmm. And I don't know, Lilo or Radical, if one of you guys are pro-life, can or both.
Yeah.
So some of the thoughts were that look into it and we say, okay, we want less ABs to happen, right? So why don't let's look at the reason why people have them. And a lot of people are having them because of economic reasons. And we said, well, all right, why don't we pass legislation that says that childbirth is free in a hospital? Why don't we pass legislation that says that early childhood education and maybe some government help for childcare is out there that could help people go, look, you got a few years before, you know, maybe some of this help goes away, but we're going to help you economically so that you can lean into this decision in an easier manner, you know, because there's some people who simply can't afford to have a kid.
Comprehensive Smex head.
That too. But the financial situation is a big deal, and there are people that really truly worry whether they can raise a child or not, given the fact that they're working at McDonald's or something.
Yeah. I'm just a big proponent of that one personally.
Of which one?
No,
comprehensive Smex head.
I think I can totally lean into that stuff, Brad. I think that's great. I love that you guys have thought of it in that way. Snake oil. Smex Ed is great as well. You know, I think so often we want to get into defining when life begins or when life begins to be valued that we decide to have that argument, which will never be solved, instead of actually stopping more ABs. You know, and so if we're stopping more ABs by stopping unwanted pregnancies, I think that's something that Republicans and Democrats can agree on. Or if we're stopping ABs by making motherhood or fatherhood more tenable and more financially sustainable as well, I think that's an absolutely noble way to do it. And either one of those, I think, are going to save a lot more. If you truly believe it's a life, it's going to save a lot more lives to do either one of those things than to continually push back and forth on when exactly we draw the line. Like, I don't think we're ever going to solve that. I think it is gray, no matter how much people want to make it black and white on both sides. And
okay, now I want to have a larger conversation with you, because as of right now, you are the only centrist I've ever met in my entire life. I don't think anybody's a centrist. I really don't. I think somebody's always on the right or left. But it seems like you have been centrist so far. But so I want to poke and prod at you and find out where you're not a centrist.
Like I said, I'm center right. I define centrist very, very broadly. Right. I do say most people are centrist because I give it a super, super broad definition. And my definition is someone who's willing to work across the aisle. So basically, I'm only excluding the far left and the far right, the people that were on here earlier and who you could not have a conversation with without receiving accusations. Like, I would call everybody on this call a centrist because you're willing to talk and listen as well, and then all come up with a solution together. I think that's where it's at. I think that's beautiful. That's everything that I'm about.
We could call
don't
it.
say far left, far right, by the way. I'm a Marxist, and I will have radical opinions on the solutions for all of these problems.
Totally. You can have those. You can have those. I don't care. You can have
but
those.
I am willing to come to the middle. I know what kind of system we live in.
Exactly. You're a pragmatist or pragmatist. I don't even know how you pronounce it. But you're one of those things, and I can work with you. I can have a great conversation, you know?
All right, so MABA is make all babies affordable again. You can run that up through the right.
There you go.
And we can get...
It can't be true up to you, Brad, though. This is now my idea. If you use that idea later, I'm going to say you plagiarized it from me.
That's fine. Listen, that's why I said if they were to reintroduce like the Langford bill and call it the Trump border bill, I don't care. Because I want America to do well, right?
Yeah. No, I love this. Like, the optics are so dumb and we're all so tired of it. Like, just pass good things. Let whoever take credit. Yeah, I'm with you.
This is beautiful. This is so beautiful. But see, this is what happens when the radicalization or like, yeah, the thing is, like, I've talked to some people that are far left and I've talked to some that are easy to talk to. It's just like, there's like this certain subset that is causing these issues. And I think it strongly proliferates on TikTok. And it's something that I've literally come to move and shake. I'm known on this platform now as being apparently problematic simply for the desire to bring peace and to try to bring these centered conversations and to reach across the aisle. And I don't know, that's wild to me that would be at all problematic.
Yeah. Well, I think there's a perverse incentive structure where if you are hopping on a live, they cannot cede ground, right? Like, and I get this way too. If I'm on a live and I'm in front of a whole bunch of people and somebody traps me in a corner, or well, it's not even that. It's that they've built their audience based on how different it is.
No.
Oh yeah, I've been talking to a lot of people who are MAGA, like MAGA influencers. I've called a lot of prominent MAGA influencers, and we have these conversations, and they're like, "Oh my gosh, we're not different at all." And I'm like, yes, girl, yes, guy. Like, I just love talking to these people because I'm tired of seeing the extreme laid out all over social media when in all actuality, people are only tying to those extremes because it's what gets them views. Sadly, when you talk about things from a realistic perspective, the content goes nowhere or it's discouraged because the comment sections have been highly radicalized by extreme content on both sides. So people are de-incentivized to take a stance that is more realistic and pragmatic. And I talk to all of these people and they're like, yeah, I have these left-wing beliefs, but I won't talk on it because my side will eat me alive if I do. Or yeah, I have these right-wing beliefs, but I won't talk on it or my side will eat me alive if I do. And it's like social media it's almost like it's the bane of this. It's the crux of the problem.
So I actually wanted to touch on that, and that's a great lead-in point of just kind of, it's really, TikTok, I've seen it be the worst.
Oh, yeah.
Prior to Elon Musk's acquisition of Twitter, of like the polarization. And it's for a couple reasons, I think, on TikTok. One is just because short form content is very reductive and lacks nuance. So there's a reason why you'll find a lot of like beginner tutorials on TikTok. You'll find a lot of beginner based content because you don't need to go in depth on stuff like that. And that's the same way with like with politics. The further you go, the more or the more radical you go, the more reductive things are. So that's why very quick, like quippy sayings are effective. And then two, it's because TikTok really forces everyone to, whenever it comes to like talking to others forces people to be an influencer in some degree. So if you want to give like a longer form response, I think only until like just recently they were only allowing comments that were maybe a couple sentences. So it was always super difficult to get your thought process out there. And then so you would have to make video responses, and then people would see you as an influencer. So everyone's an influencer.
Yeah, yeah. I also agree too. Like in the comment section, someone said, because this definitely happens on both sides of the aisle to the extent of like, someone brought up Candace Owens, and it's like 100%. Candace Owens had one opinion that disagreed with the fan base that the Donald Trump fan base, and as a result, the amount of social media TikToks and like people that just, I mean, she lost a bunch of following, she lost a bunch of people because she had an opinion that was different than the administration, and it's like that volatility is. And that's what I'm talking, like, it's happening on both sides, and it's something that we have to discourage our sides from participating in, and while simultaneously reaching across the aisle. I think that will help fix and tune down the nature of politics that have.
Yeah, and it's specifically a little bit.
One second. Someone in the comment section said, "Are you defending Candace Owens?" Please, like, I don't know if your comprehension skills are that of the cockroaches, but quite simply, me bringing up Candace Owens, this is what we're talking about with these people that do this. All I said was this issue is happening on both sides, and they have, translated that into their mind of, are you defending Candace Owens? And that is what I cannot stand about these people.
That is what I meant by binary thinking.
Comments.
Mercedes, can you bring up IRI?
Oh, yeah. He's awesome.
Excellent creator. Excellent demeanor. Good to talk to.
I also just wanted to add to that the big difference between the right and the left. And by the way, for people in the comments and for people up here, when I say the left, I'm specifically meaning like the American left, so like liberals and then like left from that. Typically on that end of the spectrum, they will want you to fall in line with ideology. The right wants you to fall in line with Trump in this case, or whoever the politician is. And there are multiple instances where I could point this out, but probably the biggest one on the right was when Kyle Rittenhouse said that he was going to write in Ron Paul, and he got eaten alive by the right for saying that. Or when Joe Rogan said that RFK had good ideas before RFK dropped out and endorsed Trump. But I'm going to get going because it is like 2 o'clock in the morning. So,
yeah, I was about to everyone too, but then IRI hopped on, and I really want to talk to him. So thanks a lot.
He's pretty fly, they say.
Yeah, that's what they say. I saw you on Jubilee, man. Darn you.
That's a deeper meaning, if you know that.
What's up, everybody?
What's going on, man?
How's it going?
Pretty good, man. What's going on here? Anything exciting?
It was earlier. Now we're just being all calm and chill and shit.
Okay. I miss all the action, man.
You totally missed all the action.
I would love your take on a really sensitive one that we started up earlier, which was it had a lot to do with the purity testing that the left is doing and pushing people out if they don't fall into some isolated narrative. I don't know. Do you see that? Do you feel that?
I mean, I feel it, but I think activism comes in many forms, and everybody has their own audience and the people they appeal to.
Sure.
And I just respect that certain people reach other people, and I think the pipeline crosses many different beliefs and personalities. So basically we need people fighting in all areas.
I will say this about the far left. To give you context, I'm middle right? I'm a very, very moderate Republican. But I do think that the far left makes the middle left more palatable and almost makes it so that when a more palatable solution comes up from the left, they can almost say, "Hey, this is what we want to go with, and this is what they wanted." But I don't know. I think there's value there. I think that back in, to compare it to like the civil rights movement, there was MLK and Malcolm X, and they both were very important to the movement. And MLK was able to take a lot of the credit and to negotiate in some ways that he probably wouldn't have been able to without Malcolm X. I don't know. What do you guys think?
I think the left has their place, and I agree to that 100%. I just think how they communicate their ideologies, especially on like these online spaces, is what's causing, an issue.
Yeah. Yeah, I will say there was no room for a productive conversation earlier.
When they were up here, when Jaden was up here, I mean, the amount of interrupting, and it was like the refusal to let anyone speak, or if you did speak something, it turned into an instant accusation of something that you said but you didn't even say, and that was just an issue. Like, I mean, everyone saw it. The conversation lacked productivity while those people could not even stop interrupting, or they wanted.
It was messy. Yeah. It was messy. It was messy. For sure.
It turns into Jordan Peterson left edition. It's like, well, what is the meaning of that word, and what do you mean by that? and none of that advances. Like you can't even, like, normal people don't have conversations like this because it's not how normal people talk. For one, it's how people come up in grandstand. But I think the idea is that entire time that dialogue like that happens, there's no progress happening. Nobody's talking about ideas and solutions. We found some common ground across the aisle up here already. I think that's pretty important.
Yeah.
Yeah. I will say one place where, if we're talking bipartisan, one place where I think the far left, the far right, and the middle agrees. You ready for this? What I have discovered is there's huge bipartisan sentiment that corporate money in politics is wrong. I can't find anybody that says that that's a good thing and that doesn't want that out of politics.
Corporations are people. No, I'm just kidding.
Yeah. Get out of here, Brad.
We should end Citizens United. Yes, that is correct.
Yes. Yeah, when you can get Matt Gaetz and AOC to agree on legislation about like trading inside of Congress, it's like, I guess all hope is not lost, Yes.
Yeah. I try to highlight when members across the aisle work together because I think it's important to see our leaders doing that.
Yeah.
Also, I think I try to approach people that everybody's coming from a place of trying to do good in their mind, even if they're coming aggressive. I don't know what happened earlier, but even if people come at me angry or aggressive or disagree with me, I still feel like they're doing what they think is right. So I try to be understanding. And I don't take it personally.
I had a guy who's not politically involved talk to me about his, and it's refreshing to talk to people who aren't politically involved about this because they get to the humanity of it in ways that sometimes we don't. But he was like, you can find me anybody, and if you ask them what they care about and you get down to the core of it, like, they may be in different ways to get somewhere, but what they really want is for people to be happy and for the world to be a better place. And they might disagree about how to get there, but if you can get to that point and then work backwards, you can usually find some point where it's like, all right, I disagree with you on 99.9% of things, but there's this 0.1% of solutions that we agree on, and we can kind of move forward in that way. And I think that's a cool thing when it happens.
Yeah, it's important to find the stuff you can agree on.
What's the hardest part of that now, though, is there's an overwhelming amount of information out there. A lot of it is bad information. It's not helpful. It's agenda-based. You have to almost achieve objective reality before you can move forward. And that is absolutely an uphill battle. And I know IRI, I see you doing it all the time where someone comes up and they're like, no, I know this is true. And you're like, well, let me show you this. They're like, and then so it's like unringing a bell. And it takes hours before you can even then to get to that reality, it requires humility on somebody's part to admit they were wrong or the information they had wasn't accurate. And then then moving forward. And it's such a long process compared to if we all had good data to begin with and we talked about solving a problem we agree on with different ways. I would love to be back there if that was ever a place we were.
Can I make an argument that maybe you can skip a few steps there? So I don't think you need to establish an objective reality. Like, I've given up on that. And so in my Republican climate activism, I believe that climate change is real. I don't see a reason why it wouldn't be. I think that fossil fuels are absolutely lobbying and doing PR campaigns to just throw doubt in the science. But when I stop trying to convince people that climate change is real and I just say something like, you know what, it's silly that nuclear has all of this fear around it. And even if I say to somebody on the right, like, you know what, it's silly that the left has in the past, because it's not the case anymore, but in the past has demonized nuclear to such a degree, it's actually a really safe energy form. They'll jump right in, be like, we are all about nuclear. We should absolutely deregulate it. And we want to see more nuclear plants. And they see it as a winning issue for them. Like, it's a way to say, we're smart and the left is dumb. And you know what? I'll take it. Like, I think you can skip a few steps beyond establishing a shared reality. We already have enough values in common that if you can get to those values and then figure out a solution that aligns with both of your values, it can work. Like, we just did it earlier with abortion, right? Yeah. We don't think, AB. We don't think that none of us here on this call, I don't think any of us agree on when a life begins exactly. But we do agree that we could focus on, preventing unwanted pregnancies or making motherhood or parenthood easier. And we all agreed on that, even though we didn't share the same reality.
Sure.
Well, I think we're about to do it on AI. We could see like 20% unemployment pretty soon if things go real poorly in the next 2 years. So.
Oh yeah.
I think 2 years, huh?
I mean, there's some big articles that came out talking about 40% of entry-level white-collar jobs are going to be eliminated in the next year.
Yep.
Wow, they couldn't even figure out how to go sift through the databases in the federal government. You think they're going to be able to figure out how to do white-collar or blue-collar jobs?
Well, that was Doge and Big Balls, so I don't know.
They still used AI.
Well, I'm telling you, it's already replacing jobs in my industry. I joke, this isn't true, but I joke that my most valuable employee is ChatGPT Plus, because it's just so quick, and I mean, it writes as well as I do, and way faster, and it's amazing. And it's already letting a lot of one art director do the job of two art directors in a lot of cases, and churn out way more content. And I'm pretty worried about it. I really think that ad agencies, performance marketing is all about optimization, and that's what AI is really, really good at. And I really think that there's going to be a huge consolidation in the next 2 years within my industry for sure.
Yeah, and every advance in technology that the U.S. has had, there's been a certain reality is that you got to look at all the technology and productivity that's increased over the last 100 years. Who benefits from that disproportionately has been very one-sided. It's not like we have shorter work weeks. It's not like people are getting higher pay or have more benefits because they're producing more things or using advanced techniques. It definitely actually expands the wealth gap, unfortunately, and AI would be a huge multiplier of that too. And that is really scary.
Let me try to spice this up a little bit. This is too vanilla, guys. This is too friendly. What do you guys think of? I think that tariffs make sense in the case of AI, specifically because I'm looking at China. So right now the race is to create AI agents that can do stuff online, but the race after that race is merging AI with robotics and creating robots that can build themselves and other things and do blue collar jobs even. And once you have robots that can build themselves, you have exponential production capacity. And the US is really behind China when it comes to any sort of manufacturing. And so I have disagreed heartily with China that bring production home from China and kind of cripple China as they continue to advance is actually really important. And I think you combine it with at-home infrastructure investment for manufacturing, but I see that as I almost see that as the next Cold War.
So you want us to create Skynet and nobody else? Is that what you're saying?
Yeah, I want to create it first, so that we die first. It's going to be a painful, long, drawn-out war.
Yeah, I did 20 years in the military, and I fear for what war looks like at the end of this. But I agree with tariffs from a national security standpoint that you need to have a steel industry. And breaking news that came across from my New York Times feed, because I'm on the left, I get the Times, was that the aluminum tariffs of 50% just kicked in. So some of the manufacturing things, such as the auto industry, the steel industry, food production, things like that, I think there's like a bare minimum of things you have to do as a country that you have some sustainability.
Yeah,
that you could build ships, that you could make vehicles, you could convert factories to do different things as we've done in the past. So I agree with that. The approach that's going on right now is
agreed.
Did you hear that called Air Force One? They're calling it Panda Express. I don't know if you heard because there's an orange chicken
Give
on
me some
it.
orange chicken.
Oh, okay, I gotcha.
And so I don't know who sits around and comes up with this stuff, but and I was like, okay, because of the whole taco thing.
The left is so much better than the right when it comes to memeing and just absolutely trolling anything that the right does. I mean, they're so much better at it. I will totally admit that. And it's pretty funny. The chicken stuff has been pretty funny.
Wow, that is the first time I've ever heard that said.
You don't agree?
I do agree, but I've never heard anybody actually say it out loud.
Yeah. No, I mean, the right does some funny stuff, and when they're making fun of woke culture, I think it's pretty funny. And the left does it to themselves some with woke culture. There's some stuff that's so ridiculous, it's just so easy to make fun of it, and you almost it's so cathartic to laugh at some of the craziness that makes you realize that you're not insane. But the left has us beat in the creative fields for sure. The right is much more analytical and much less creative and funny in that way, in my opinion.
Right brain, left brain.
Hey, you need them both. You need them both.
I don't know if you need them both, but certainly it's the opposite side. So the right brain thinkers are the more creative, but they're also the more liberal.